Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today, I want to give you some alternatives to a very popular game, Clue. I'm a big fan of Clue. Honestly, I think it's my naughty pleasure, considering considering the opinions that people have about Clue. But it's one of the first board games I play. I like the feeling, I like the theme, and I like what it does. I like the type of puzzle that it gives you. Yes, there is roll and move, which is very punishing sometimes, but doesn't mean it's a bad game. There's something good about it, and I still enjoy it. And if you are someone like me, that likes Clue, see the shortcomings, or is looking for something different, well, I'm here to give you 10 games that can give you some feeling about Clue or even better. At number 10, we have Holiday Hijinks. This is a collection actually of 12, 18 card decks. So you have 12 decks of cards, and each deck is made of 18 cards. These decks are structured in a such way that they are going to provide you some sort of an escape type feeling. You use an app that will trigger the countdown, and there's also a answer key kind of thing, and also give you some hints, etc., etc. But essentially, you're going to use this card to solve riddle puzzle. So if you like the idea of a clue that tease your mind, that lets you think about outside the box, try to solve puzzle or riddles, well, yeah, you have it. And there are some of these scenarios have something related with clue, with murder, a little bit of a creepy stuff, but it's really tongue and cheek. It's very, very well done. It's more about the escape type of feeling. You playing within an hour or so, only 18 cards. You pack it back. You don't write, you don't destroy, you need to do anything about it. And then you can give it to someone else as a lovely gift. If you like Clue because it makes you feel like a detective try to find the murder, solve the case, well, Chronicles of Crime is a great alternative. Chronicles of Crime is a cooperative game where players are trying to solve a case, a mystery case. It could be a robbery, could be most of the time a murder case. And what you do, you have cards that indicate location, they indicate weapons, they also represent characters that you see in the story. And you use an app on your cell phone to scan a QR code, and you start interacting with the location. You have a VR, virtual reality view of the location. You scan the QR code to a character, you start interact with the character. While you are having this conversation with the character, you may scan an object, kind of asking that person, do you know anything about the object? Are you related with this object? And you go through this story, things can change, someone is may die throughout the story, or someone was in the church and then you found in the restaurant with a beautiful woman, and you say, "Wow, what a second! That person is married. What's going on?" Chronicles of Crimes comes in a different type of box. Everyone with a different twist. You may be set in the 2400. You may set in the LA noir type of scenario. Very, very engaging. It's a very nice package, family friendly in terms of tones and thematic, but definitely a grown up game because some of the scenarios are quite challenging. So if you want to feel like a detective, try to solve the case, try to put the pieces together, Chronicles of Crime is a great alternative. At number 9, he said, if you like more puzzle game, like a logic, pure logic game, and you are only two people, things that you cannot do with Clue. Clue, you list at least three people. Well, mine comes to your help. Mine is a deduction game where you have a screen, and behind your screen you set some pieces, color pieces in a different orientation, some similar to a battleship, and so does your opponent. Then you start asking questions to each other, and the question is essentially, imagine to have a laser going through one row or a column of the opponent grid, and the opponent will tell you where the laser comes off and which color, and from that you can deduce how many pieces has been hit on the opponent. For example, if the ray is colorless and ends up to be green, you know that hit a blue and a yellow. And depending on which row or columns exit, you can imagine how many side of a geometrical figure I hit. And you start doing this back and forth until a player figure out all the orientation of the pieces. And if it corrects, wins the game. Very crunchy, It plays very quickly, and that's what I like. And also, play it, make a very tiny version of it, which is very convenient, easy to bring. And number 8, or up a mind. And number 7, we have a more classic clue type of thing. You have a murder, you go through a mansion, and you need to find who did it, why, which weapon. And this is awkward guess. In awkward guess, you have a deck of cards, and during your turn, every time you ask about a location or about a character or about a motive. And players around the table will tell you, I have 3 cards about this, I have 2 clues about this. And you exchange those clues or cards with cards in your hand. So you get some information, you give some information. And then you have a map with some restriction. You know that the murder has to go through a place where there's Mr. Watson found killed, and there's a path that the murder have to go and pick up the murder weapon. And then you have the housekeeper that always tell the truth. You also have the police always tell the truth. You know, you can start excluding in this location. There are 2 people all of the time. And so if you know that someone is lying about it, and you can start doing that deduction very similar to Clue, but not perfectly. There's a scenario. You need to prepare the deck for that specific scenario. And that's why I like it. Gives me the same feeling, but at the same time, it's more family friendly, and perhaps that's why it's a little bit more approachable than Clue. That you don't stress your mind too much. And eventually, you will come up and figure out by process of elimination, by seeing more and more cards. Eventually, we will come up to the right conclusion. And this is a number 7, awkward guest. On number 6, we have a game that is almost identical to Clue, but it changed the theme, and I like it more. It's Mystery of the Abbey, and then recently we have a new version of it. Mystery of the Abbey is Clue, but set in an abbey. You have monks there that eventually they will kill each other, and you need to figure out who's the monk based on if the monk has a beard, the monk has a hood, doesn't have the hood. You start asking questions. You have also you share those questions with your opponents, very similar to Clue. So if you don't want to go away from the system, but you want just a different theme, Mystery Day App is definitely a great alternative. And number 5, we have another game that is more about solving the case and make you feel like a cop than deduction, pure deduction. And this is Detective LA City of Angels. This game is a huge box that gives you a lot of content and also different ways you can play. I think the designer thought about this game more like a RPG type of game where you have a game master who knows the scenario, who knows who the murderer is, who knows everything, and the other players are the cops, the investigator trying to solve the case. They go to location, they spend time to investigate, ask questions to the suspect, to the witnesses. In the way they ask this question, they ask to the game master who decide what kind of answer they want to give. They can be truly honest, they can blur a little bit, or can totally lie. And so the investigator needs to figure out if the true answer, they can put pressure to the game master called the Chizo in the game. And if you put pressure and you are correct, you get rewarded. Instead, if you put pressure and that is the most honest answer, well, you have a small punishment, but not too much. And the good thing is that game master can figure out which player is ahead of everyone else. And if the player is significantly ahead, can just mitigate a little bit, making the game a little bit harder for that person so the other people can catch up, just to make the game more fun and more entertaining for everyone. You can play cooperatively, so you can ask questions to the book and work together to the case. Very well written, fantastic artwork. Highly recommended. LA Detective City of Angels. And number 4, we have another detective game. You try to solve a case. This is truly competitive and is a Watson Holmes. In Watson Holmes, you have several cases, and each case has envelopes that you place on front of everyone in the table in a specific orientation, and those envelopes represent location. And during your turn, you go to a location, you open the envelope, and you read what happens there. And sometimes you can take a token and block the location so opponents cannot go, or they need to spend a turn to go there, spend some other tokens to go there. And so why would you do that? Or maybe because there's a very juicy piece of information there. Or maybe not. You just want to waste their time to go a useless place. There's no really true information. The stories are very well written. I really like the setting. I really like that kind of feeling a competition with other players. Definitely it can feel a little bit solitary because everyone is reading, is everyone is doing their own thing. It's just trying to figure out, why someone is going that direction. If you see someone, it feels like, oh, I think he got it more. Maybe he's at a better lead. Let me follow in that kind of stuff. But at the end, knowing how far everyone went into the puzzle is very entertaining. And number four, Watson and Holmes. And number three, we have a game that is again only about puzzle, about the nature of cross eliminating. You have a puzzle, you have an incognita, you need to find it. And this is Search for Planet X. The Search for Planet X is all about finding Planet X, but also finding asteroids, comets, and nebulas and things like that. You have an app that assists you, and you also have some restriction, meaning Planet X is always in an empty space. Planet X is not near to these things. A comet is within these quadrants, and nebulas are always by themselves. I don't remember, but there are some requisites. And then you have a rondel at the center. You can go as far as you want it. But the further you go, the narrower the information you get, but the more time you're going to wait for your next turn. And you ask the app about Planet X. You can ask about comets. You can ask about nebulas. And by doing this, you narrow down where Planet X and all the other things can be. At some point in the game, you can put a token down saying, I think the comet is in this quadrant. Your opponents don't know that you think there is a comet. The opponents know that you're confident about something about this. And then if the opponent know that you keep asking about comets, perhaps that's what you're going for. Therefore, they start to deduce that there's a comet there. They can get this information, but it's not always correct. And find Planet X is a race, but also find all the other elements in the sky is going to give you points. And so it is a race, but also it's a competition to gather points. Who has the most points at the end of the game is the winner. Very, very thinking. There is a easy mode, definitely too easy, but there's a hard mode, very hard, very thinking, head down, writing there, possibility like a Sudoku, very crunchy, very immediate, satisfying. And number three, Search for Planet X. And number two, we have a game that essentially Clue without rolling dice, but all about the murder, the weapon, and the time. And this is chronologic. I'm putting chronologic Paris 1920, but there are a new one recently released. They all work the same. What you have is a map in front of you. The person has been murdered, and you need to find who did it, at what time, why, or what weapon, etc. And you have different cards that represent the suspect. And what you do, you take the card, you slide into a sleeve, and you look at the card. And by doing that, the card reveals you some information and also reveals some information that you can share with all the players. Very much like Clue. And you take notes and then you put it down. And so people start asking questions about all the locations or about the characters. And you also listen to the public information that you gather. And by doing that, you start doing exactly how you do process elimination. Okay, this person cannot be. This person at this time was there. This person could have done it. This is the time that person could have killed it with this weapon or for this motive. And then you can claim it and solve the case. And if you are correct, you win the game. Very much like Clue, way faster, way more engaging, better art. Number two, chronology. And now we are number one, my favorite Clue alternative. I like Clue because of the puzzle. And so this game here is Clue without theme, without rolling dice, but just the puzzle. Try to figure out what cards are in your opponent's hands and what cards are in the center. And this is Hooky. Hooky is a deck of cards of the letters of the alphabet. You distribute an equal number of cards to your opponents and you leave three on the table. And then you start questioning your opponents by simply saying words made of 5 letters, and your opponents will answer, say how many letters on their hands are present in that word. For example, you can say hooky. The word hooky has 5 letters, and that person can say three. And so now when the person says three, you start thinking, is three means three different letters? Or it means for example, the letter O repeated 2 times, plus another one, what you don't know, but you only know three. And so by asking and listening to the answer from the other players, you try to narrow down and figure out what letters the opponents have, what letters are in the center, and the first one to do it wins. Very difficult. It's very difficult game. There's a point system essentially telling the more you guess as the more points you score. I was very close to guess them all. Very close. I've never done them so far. Fantastic game. Great replacement or great implementation of Clue. And number one, Cookie. And what are your favorite games that may replace or may give you a better alternative of Clue? Let me know in the comments below. And if you made it so far, I want to thank you. Please don't forget to like, share with your friends, subscribe. You know the drill. This is not your first YouTube video, am I right? Thank you very much and see you next time. Ciao.